The day my brother walked into that shelter, no one recognized him. Not the volunteers who turned him away. Not the director who laughed when he asked for a job. Not even me, because the man standing there wearing torn boots and a coat 2 sizes too big wasn't the same brother I'd known growing up. His name is Ethan. And before he became the man people whispered about on the streets, he was the one everyone said would change the world. He was the top of his class in high school, an engineer. A dreamer, the kind of guy who could fix anything except his own heart. We grew up in a small Ohio town where money was tight but pride was cheaper. Our parents ran a mechanic shop, and Ethan spent most of his nights under the hood of some old car, dreaming of building engines that could change the industry. But life had other plans. After our parents died in a car crash when we were in our 20s, things fell apart fast. Ethan couldn't cope. He dropped out of grad school, sold his car, and disappeared into the city. For years, I searched for him, posting online, calling shelters, even walking through alleys at night with his photo. But every lead ended the same. "I'm sorry, ma'am, we haven't seen him." Until one freezing November morning, 10 years later, I saw him again. He was standing in line outside the Ridgeway Community Shelter, the same place that had once turned him away when he asked for work. His hair was long and gray at the edges, his hands shaking as he held a paper cup of coffee. When our eyes met, I froze. "Ethan," he blinked, his expression unreadable. Then he smiled faintly. "Didn't think you'd recognize me." I wanted to hug him, to drag him somewhere warm, but he stepped back. "Don't worry about me, Lily. I'm exactly where I need to be." Before I could ask what he meant, a volunteer shoved past him, muttering under his breath, "Guy's been loitering here all week, thinks he owns the place." Ethan's smile didn't fade. He just looked at the building, the faded paint, the cracked windows, and whispered, "One day, maybe I will." Before we continue, please subscribe to the channel and write in the comments about which country you're watching this video from. Enjoy the story. Back then, I thought he was joking. But a year later, I would stand in that same shelter again, except this time, my brother wasn't outside in the cold. He was inside, signing the papers to buy it outright for $85 million. After that day outside the shelter, Ethan disappeared again. I tried visiting every week, bringing extra food or old clothes just in case he came back. But the volunteers always gave the same tired answer. "He hasn't been around for a while." I convinced myself I'd imagined it, that maybe the man I saw wasn't really my brother, just someone who looked like him. But then, 6 months later, a letter arrived at my apartment. No return address. No name, just my first name, Lila, written in Ethan's familiar angular handwriting. Inside was one line: "Don't worry, I'm building something, you'll understand soon." And then nothing. Days turned into weeks, weeks into years. Life went on. I got married, moved across the city, and tried to make peace with the fact that my brother had chosen a life I couldn't follow. Until one night, 3 years later, I got a call from a number I didn't recognize. "Is this Lily Davis?" a deep voice asked. "Yes. Who's calling?" "This is Detective Monroe with the city police. We believe your brother may have been involved in a recent fire near the old Ridgeway shelter." My stomach dropped. "Is he?" "He's alive," the detective interrupted, "but there's something strange. He was seen leaving the area minutes before the fire started with 2 men in suits, getting into a black car." That didn't sound like the Ethan I knew. He didn't have money for a meal, let alone men in suits. The next morning, I went straight to the site. The shelter's main wing had burned to ashes. Only the brick facade and a half-melted sign remained. And standing by the yellow police tape was someone I hadn't seen in years. Ethan. He looked different. His beard was trimmed, his posture straighter. He was wearing a tailored coat and polished shoes that didn't belong on someone sleeping on benches. He turned when he saw me. "You shouldn't be here." "Ethan, what's going on?" "They said you were." He shook his head. "Not now, but soon. You'll see what I've been working on." Behind him, the 2 men in suits stood by the car, watching silently. I stepped closer. "What are you mixed up in?" Ethan smiled, that same quiet, knowing smile I remembered. Something that's going to change everything. For everyone they left behind, he got into the car, and before I could say another word, it pulled away. That was the last time I saw him until 1 year later, when his face appeared on every major news network. The headline read, "Former homeless man buys entire shelter chain in $85 million acquisition." The first time I saw Ethan's face on television, I thought it was a mistake. There he was, clean-shaven, dressed in a dark navy suit, standing behind a podium with the Ridgeway Shelter logo gleaming in the background. Cameras flashed as reporters shouted his name. The caption below him read, "Ethan Davis, CEO of New Dawn Initiative." I nearly dropped my coffee. This was the same man who once begged a shelter to let him sweep floors. The same man who'd vanished without a trace for nearly 4 years. The reporter's voice echoed through my living room. Once homeless, Ethan Davis has purchased the Ridgeway Shelter chain for $85 million through his non-profit, New Dawn Initiative, which focuses on sustainable housing and job reintegration programs for the homeless. 85 million. I couldn't even process the number. Ethan didn't have $85 when I last saw him. That night, I drove straight to the press conference downtown. The building was surrounded by journalists, city officials, and former Ridgeway residents, holding signs that said things like "Thank you, Ethan," and "A second chance." When he finally stepped out of the building, I pushed through the crowd until we locked eyes. For a moment, he looked like he wanted to run, but then he smiled. A calm, knowing smile. "Lily," he said quietly, as security guards hovered nearby. "You found me again?" "I saw the news," I said, my voice shaking. "Ethan, where did all this come from? How did you?" He cut me off gently. "Not here. Meet me tomorrow morning at the old shop. Dad's place." Then he was gone again, swept into a black car like before. The next morning, I drove to the mechanic shop we grew up in, abandoned, covered in graffiti, windows boarded up. But when I stepped inside, I froze. It wasn't abandoned anymore. The shop was spotless, the smell of oil and metal still hanging faintly in the air. The walls were lined with blueprints, computer screens, and prototypes, some kind of compact engine design that looked far too advanced for a repair shop. Ethan appeared from the back. Sleeves rolled up, grease on his hands, just like old times. "This," he said, pointing to the engine, "is where it all started." He explained that after he'd lost everything, he spent years sleeping near construction sites, scavenging scrap metal, and sketching designs. One day, a retired investor noticed him drawing on cardboard outside a cafe, and instead of walking past, he stopped to listen. That man funded his first prototype, an ultra-efficient modular engine that could power homes and vehicles at a fraction of the cost. And once it sold, Ethan said softly, "I made a promise. Every dollar I earned would go toward the people who didn't get a second chance like I did." I stared at him, speechless. "So you bought Ridgeway?" "To save them," he nodded. "To save us." But before I could respond, he pulled a folded paper from his pocket, an eviction notice. "The shelter's not safe yet," he said grimly. "Someone's trying to shut it down before we can rebuild." That's when I realized Ethan's fight wasn't over. It was just beginning. Ethan spread the eviction notice on the workbench, the paper trembling under his hand. It was official, signed by the city council. The Ridgeway Shelter's license to operate would be revoked within 30 days. "On what grounds?" I asked, scanning the letter. He exhaled sharply. "They're claiming misuse of funds and suspicious financial activity." "That's insane," I said. "You've done everything by the book." "That's what I thought," he replied, until I looked closer. He tapped a folder on the desk and slid it toward me. Inside were pages of bank records, meeting minutes, and letters from donors. A pattern emerged: fake invoices, forged signatures, money rerouted to shell accounts. Someone was using his own charity to make it look corrupt. "They're framing you," I whispered. Ethan nodded. "And they're good at it." He picked up another shit-on internal memo from the Ridgeway board. Stamped confidential. "The board wasn't clean when I bought the shelter," he said. "Some of them were pocketing money from donations long before I showed up. Now that I'm rebuilding everything, They're scared I'll expose them. So they're trying to destroy you first, I said. He smiled faintly, but there was no humor in it. Exactly. That night, we went through documents until dawn. The deeper we dug, the darker it got. A developer named Vincent Hale, who'd been trying to buy Ridgway's land for years, was connected to nearly every transaction. His construction company was behind the anonymous donors. Ethan's team had unknowingly partnered with Dot. It wasn't about charity, it was about real estate. They want to tear it down, Ethan muttered. Turn it into high-end condos. When morning came, he called a meeting with his board of directors. I watched from the back of the room as Ethan stood before them, calm, measured, but burning with quiet anger. I built New Dawn to lift people up, he said, not to be a front for corruption. So, I'm going to find out who's been selling us out, and when I do, they won't just lose their positions. They'll face prison. The room went still. No one spoke. After the meeting, a man in a grey suit approached Ethan near the exit. He was tall, polished, with a smile that didn't reach his eyes. Mr. Davis, he said smoothly, Vincent Hale would like a word. Privately. Ethan froze, his expression unreadable. Tell him I don't talk to thieves. The man's smile tightened. Careful, Mr. Davis. Accusations like that can be dangerous. As he walked away, Ethan turned to me. He's sending a message. That night, I couldn't sleep. Every sound outside my window made my heart race. Then, around midnight, my phone buzzed. One message. From Ethan, subject urgent. If anything happens to me, there's a second drive hidden under the workbench at Dad's shop. It has everything. I called him immediately, but it went straight to voicemail. And that's when I knew whatever game Vincent Hale was playing. My brother was now in the middle of it. I didn't sleep that night. Ethan's message echoed in my head. If anything happens to me. The next morning, I drove straight to Dad's old shop. The moment I pulled up, I knew something was wrong. The front door was wide open. The place had been ransacked, blueprints torn, drawers overturned, papers scattered across the floor. Whoever came here wasn't looking for tools. They were looking for that drive. I dropped to my knees by the workbench, heart pounding. The note had said it was hidden underneath. I felt along the underside of the wood until my fingers brushed against metal tape. I peeled it back and there it was. A small silver flash drive. Before I could even process what I was holding, a shadow moved in the doorway. Looking for this. It was the man in the grey suit, Vincent Hale's messenger. Behind him stood two others, both in black coats. I stood up slowly, gripping the drive in my hand. Where's my brother? He smiled faintly. He's tied up in meetings. My blood ran cold. If you hurt him, please, he interrupted, stepping closer. We don't want trouble. Just give us the drive. Mr. Hale is a businessman, not a killer. I didn't believe that for a second, so instead of answering, I hurled a wrench across the room and bolted through the back door. I could hear their footsteps pounding behind me. Somehow, I made it to my car, slammed the door shut, and hit the gas. By the time I reached the police station, my hands were shaking too hard to hold the steering wheel. I handed them the flash drive, explaining everything. The officer on duty promised to send it to their cybercrime division immediately. 2 hours later, Detective Monroe, the same one who had called me years ago about Ethan, his voice was grim, but steady. Miss Davis, you need to come to City Hall. Now. When I arrived, the place was swarming with reporters. And then, I saw Ethan IV, standing at the podium again, surrounded by police officers. His face was bruised, his voice calm but firm. Earlier today, he said into the microphone, evidence was recovered linking developer Vincent Hale and several Ridgway board members to an embezzlement and fraud scheme. They've been arrested, New Dawn Initiative is cleared of all accusations, and our mission continues. The crowd erupted in applause. My knees went weak with relief after the press conference. He found me in the crowd and hugged me for the first time in over a decade. You got my message, he said, smiling faintly. Barely, I replied, laughing through tears. You really know how to make an entrance. He chuckled, glancing back at the reporters. You know what's funny? They still think this is about money. I frowned. Isn't it? He shook his head. No, it's about dignity. About proving that people like us, people who lose everything, can still come back stronger. Months later, Ridgeway reopened as New Dawn Center for Renewal, offering housing, therapy, and job training for thousands. A plaque by the entrance read, "Dedicated to those who were forgotten till they changed the world." Every time I visit, I see Ethan sitting with the residents, no cameras, no suits, just him. The same brother I thought I lost, finally home. They mocked him when he had nothing. But in the end, the man they ignored didn't just buy the shelter, he rebuilt hope itself. If this story inspired you, give it a like, share it with someone who believes in second chances. And don't forget to subscribe for more stories that remind us. Sometimes, the people the world overlooks are the ones destined to change it forever.